so I would like to advise everyone to hold your questions for the end of each presentation. There are multiple presentations going on in reference to the different departments, so if we could please do so, I'd appreciate it. Thank you very much. We're going to talk about fiscal year 2015 proposed budget. We starting with you, Larry?
Well, let me give it just a little before I let Larry get loose.
City Manager?
Mayor, Commissioners, at this point in the budget process, we're probably at about say a 20,000 foot level. We've had the opportunity to sit down with the finance staff as well as the departments to go through their line by line budget for the current year to look at what the projection is for September 30th. And we've honed those numbers quite a bit. And we've also been able to help hone the numbers for the next year going forward. There's still a lot of unknowns, things we don't really have control over. For example, in the general fund, we don't have our state revenue figures yet. But we do know what, basically the property tax situation is. So we're still plugging, and we're still going to be plugging along. The presentation at this point, you have 6 funds, at least 6 funds in front of you in the various departments represented. And we're going to start with water, sewer, and the local sewer and the regional with Larry. But he's probably going to have one of the more in-depth ones because there's a lot of rate projections since it's an enterprise fund. So in that context of that 20,000 foot view, as we're moving, this is going to continue to be honed and work with staff. And this is where we are today. So with that, I'll let Larry Johnson, our Director of Water, Sewer, and Utility.
Thank you.
How was that? Nicely
Very much. Good evening, Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. Larry Johnson, for the record, the Water Utility Director. And this is my first opportunity to present a budget to you, so I appreciate that. And tonight, for the water utility, we really have 3 aspects that we'd like to discuss with you. The first will be an annual water utility report that is an overview of the entire department. The second is actually the budget summaries, and Doug Wood will be providing the budget summaries as they are now for both, that shows both fiscal year 2014 and fiscal year 2015's preliminary budget. And then the final portion of the presentation will be from Mike Burton, who is our rate consultant, who is here with us this evening, and Letitia, who I say is the brains of the outfit, and water, and
we don't mind.
and they will be talking about both the longer range water system rate analysis and sewer system rate analysis. For the water utility in particular, since it is an enterprise fund, it's very important to look at not only this coming year's budget and expense situation, but also where we are over a 4 or 5 year period. So we have asked them to develop that analysis as part of the rate sufficiency analysis, and they will present that for your information. So that would be the third part of the presentation for the water utility. Just talking about accomplishments that we've done so far in fiscal year 14. The one that's not up there is that we have essentially developed a new water utility department this year in fiscal year 2014. We are building well 16 and the raw water main, which is west of I-95. That's an ongoing construction project. We've already completed the rehab of well 9, which is also west of I-95. We're building the South 10th Avenue water main and road reconstruction that just started recently. We're approved, or you approved that contract just in the last month or so. We're also starting with the construction of the 14th, 15th, and Crestwood water mains that will be starting actual construction over the next month or so, and were awarded recently. In the Wastewater side of the utility, we replaced a variable frequency drive for one of the four master pump station drives. That's 400 horsepower. Each one of those is 400 horsepower pumps, so they're very large systems. We also replaced a carbon filter for the master pump station, which has done a lot recently to improve the odor control in that area. And we're also working to improve the odor control through other aspects as well in terms of hydrogen sulfide control. This just shows some of those projects. Well 16, we're actually drilling the well right beside our 1900 Avenue service building. And the well 16 raw water main, this is showing where it's a 16-inch water line that was drilled under Lake Worth Road at Detroit Avenue, and was done while we continued, we did not disrupt traffic on Lake Worth Road during that period of time. Some of the challenges that we face, certainly reduced water flows over the last few years and revenues. That's both good for conservation, but it does affect our revenue. Saltwater intrusion is certainly something that we are very cognizant of, and we have a program with Saltwater Water Management District where they granted a 20-year permit based on the fact that we modeled 20 years of operation to show that this saltwater intrusion would not be worse during that 20-year period of time. So the way we're doing that is we're planning on building 3 wells, which we're building the first one, and then we're eliminating 6 wells that are further to the east. On the wastewater side, we continue to have increased prices from the East Central Regional Wastewater Plant related to a large capital project that they are doing on a regional basis. We'll talk more about that as we go. And then you certainly are aware of the old piping infrastructure that we continue to work with, which both increases our proposed capital costs as well as our operating and maintenance costs. Our goals for fiscal year 15 are to develop a water utility ordinance, policies and procedures that will provide a basis for operation of the water utility that is more firm and more understandable for our customers. To continue to work with the Park of Commerce team on the Phase 1 engineering and complete that Phase 1 engineering work. To work on the Lake Worth 2020 Teams Year 1 engineering projects, which are part of previous CIPs as well. To work on basically to develop a pilot project for the 2-inch water line replacement in the coming year, so that we get experience with actually installing those water line replacements. To install 30 new hydrants in places where we already have the water mains that are suitable to be able to provide better fire protection, and to develop a water utility expansion plan for the future. As part of that, in fiscal year 16, our personnel request, we really have a new administration section that was never developed prior to this. So in this fiscal year, we have essentially developed that. As you'll see, is the funds for that have actually been transferred so that there was a net, no net change in terms of the budget for that, but it is being transferred from other locations. It will include 5 employees, 3 that are being transferred from other locations in the water department now, and 2 new ones. The reason for the 2 new ones, they will be a capital project manager and an accounting analyst. And as a new department, I would just say is that, we are very cognizant of your direction to run a as slim as we can and to be as efficient as we can. But with, you'll see the budget numbers, but this is essentially a $20 million enterprise fund that we're operating as a department. And I'd like to just show you the management staff that we have for that department right now. And if you would just, stand please. Yeah, so there's 4 of us. And, that's really slim for that size department as far as management staff. Thank you all. And I would say thank you to all of these people. They've been great to work with and very dedicated to the city. But, so we are asking for 2 new positions. The capital project manager is essentially to manage. We have about 8 existing capital projects that we're working on right now. And in order to be able to do that and both start the project, overview it, and then close it out, what we've talked about many times here is that, we really need the capital project manager to be able to do that. The same way on the accounting analyst firm is we work very closely with Doug in the finance department, and in order to be able to do a better job of really analyzing our contracts, making sure that we have the right blanket orders, doing the kind of procurement that we need to do, is that this position will be very essential for that kind of an enterprise fund. And so our total staff complement is 47, the 45 are existing. And it breaks down about 30 in water, 16 in sewer, and 1 in the regional sewer. Finally, just the budget request, so you see it for this year, fiscal year 14 and 15. The water fund budget is actually going down from 19.2 million to 15.8 million. About an 18% reduction. Again, that is largely due to the amount of capital projects that, basically the contribution for capital projects that we had a very high contribution in fiscal year 14. It's a little bit lower in fiscal year 15, and so that's why it's, down somewhat. The sewer is a slight increase, basically a 1.9 million increase to 10.4 million, which is about 22%. And the regional sewer, our actual budget is at this point down just slightly, 1%, and to about $6 million. It does include, the regional sewer does include a 14% increase in the ECR fund rate, which we've told to our sub-regional partners as well, and which is for basically the wastewater treatment plant capital project. And just, in summary, is we contribute about $1.2 million to the general fund. And this does include the Lake Worth 2020 contributions as well as part of the budget that we're proposing here. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Doug to just go over the budget summaries and we can answer any questions.
Any questions of Larry right now, Commissioner McFoy?
Just a couple little ones. Thank you for the explanations. One technical one, on that 16, the 4 pumps, total of 1,600 horsepower, how much of that ballpark off the top of your head is pumping Lake Worth versus pumping the regional?
Lake
half and
Worth
half,
is
or-
about half.
Okay, yeah, that's all I was looking for there. Perhaps not at this time, but at some point, as you know, I'm certainly interested in water conservation, and we have some degree of requirements both from the Water Management District and state things. It always concerns me when we have a bit of a tension back and forth between revenues and conservation. We don't if we can avoid it. We don't want to be in a position where we penalize ourselves economically for encouraging people to conserve. So anything that we can do, we had a few years back, we had quite a bit of discussion about this with the electric, and I understand that electric and water are quite different. With water, most of your costs are not variable, most of your costs are fixed,
Yes.
so that's a challenge. It's harder to avoid the revenue bumps, but anything you can do to keep sending the signal out that conservation doesn't hurt us, it's what we want to be doing, is helpful. Just a comment on the saltwater intrusion modeling, that's something that I've followed for a number of years now. I and some other folks have a degree of skepticism about how well preserved we are from the saltwater intrusion, and particularly because that modeling made some assumptions as to where the source of the increasing chloride levels that we're seeing, basically a plume moving inland. The assumption in the modeling was that that was due to drainage of the Lake Worth Drainage District, and several of us hydrogeologists are skeptical. We had a difference of opinion about it, but I just want there to be an awareness that saltwater intrusion is likely to be more of a problem than we may think because of that modeling. But that's, and then one last one, just that one of your employees who's been here a long time, Phil Donovan, is he's been very active at the state level in professionalism of water managers and water plant employees. He's, I believe, having sort of an informal gathering on Thursday night, and he mentioned that any of us that would be able to make it over to the water plant 7 o'clock Thursday night, stick our heads in a little bit, wish them well, would be a good thing. So
They're actually having, yes, as you'd be more than welcome, and it's an FWPCOA meeting, which is their Professional Operators Association. So it will be the regional operators that are getting together, and they're basically, Phil is getting ready to retire at the end of July, and as we certainly wish him well. Just two other comments, if I may.
Could you just get a little bit closer? It's hard to. Thanks.
Yes. Commissioners, is that two other things. You mentioned about seawater or salinity concerns, and we share that understanding, and that one of the things as we continue to engineer the additional wells, we'll be looking at the modeling and seeing whether or not there is, basically how much we change certain elevations would affect that, so that we'll be able to be adaptable, or that is part of our efforts at being adaptable for salinity increases in the future. The other thing is, from a water conservation standpoint, is I don't know whether you saw the article in the Post, but I thought it was interesting that they mentioned how good Boynton was because they were the 5th lowest consumption, and they didn't, they just in the middle of the article they said that Lake Worth was 2nd. So we're actually doing better than quite a few of our neighbors. We're actually the 2nd best in the county in terms of the consumptive use at this time.
But wasn't the article written about us then?
Yeah.
one
I'm gonna call him tomorrow, follow up that thought, and then we'll give him a chance.
was it? Oh, yes, with the saltwater intrusion. A while back, I think this was actually before you came, when I was concerned about this in the past, we had some discussion about adding a few monitoring wells that we keep track of to be able to make sure that we're following that plume. And I don't know, that I didn't follow up to see whether that was actually done, but that's something that we might want to look at, make sure that we've got some monitoring wells, and I forget whether we do it or whether the Water Management District monitors them, but it looked to me, when I looked at the mapping of it, that we could do with 1 or 2 more, and there was sort of a general feeling that, yeah, that wouldn't be bad. And I don't think they're terribly expensive, the monitoring wells.
Okay.
Very
We'll
different.
get back with you as
Yeah.
far as that goes.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
With that, DPW's right behind you.
Vice Mayor, hold on one second, Larry.
Oh, okay. I'm
Do you have any more questions?
Thank you. Larry, under your accomplishment presentation for fiscal year 14, you mentioned that you replaced a carbon filter for an NPS Motor Control. We only have one of those in the city?
Yeah, this is the
Right.
carbon filter for the master pump station, and it forms, we have other, odor control systems at other lift stations, but the master pump station is the most critical, and we actually have an operational scrubber there, which is the primary odor control device. But then even if that fails or it has to be taken down for maintenance, we have the carbon filter, which forms as a second basically as an additional backup to reduce the kinds of odor problems that we've experienced down there in Bryant Park. So that's one of the things that in investigating that problem and trying to find ways that we could improve the situation, that we're taking those steps.
Thank you, because Bryant Park was going to be my follow-up. So Bryant Park is now taken care of?
Well, it's definitely improved, and we're continuing to follow that and follow that performance and make sure that we do the best we can with it.
Okay. Under your challenges presentation, you mentioned reduced water flows and revenues. Is the reduced water flow primarily due to the pipes, the fact that the pipes have been restricted?
I think
In some
that,
cases.
no, I think it's really more, it's a combination of the economics that the city has faced over the last 4 or 5 years, just with the reduction in the number of families and
Usage.
the reduction in the number of usage. So hopefully, as the economy turns around and as the people come to the city, that we will see not increased
Per capita.
usage per capita, but
More
increased
total
usage
base.
as people come into the city.
And under goals for fiscal 15, you mentioned developing a new utility ordinance. Do we currently have a?
There is
one-
the utility ordinance is part of or the water utility portion of the ordinance is part of the municipal code that the city has. However, it is not as complete as we would like, and we would also like to have the flexibility of establishing a policies and procedures manual that would be referenced by the ordinance, but would allow us to have some flexibility on an operational basis. And so we're working with the city attorneys to develop that and bring it back to you, similar to what William has done with the sustainability department on his side.
Can I follow up on that?
Vice Mayor?
So is this more back of the house operational policies and procedures as opposed to, say, customer service or, billing type of, and setting up accounts?
It will include both.
Okay. All right, also going on to your FY 15 personnel requests, the capital project manager and accounting analyst, why are we not outsourcing that?
Basically because my experience is that you need someone in-house that can manage the consultants essentially in the community, that you are working. Is these projects to a great extent will be done by contracting with outside consultants, and we've even gone to the approach similar to what we've done with Park of Commerce, that we will be using a consultant as an owner's rep to provide service both during design as well as during construction. But even with that, you need someone that has basically the owner's thoughts, interest at heart, and is able to basically answer questions and also provide oversight to make sure that these projects don't go astray. And it's nothing about the consultants, but the owner has to state basically what they want and provide that sort of management oversight.
I think what I'd really like to ask is, you mentioned in that discussion that there were like 8 water projects going on right now. I think that was the number that you used. And obviously, we're looking maybe to 2020 if the voters approve that. And at some point, the water projects are really going to drastically drop off. Hopefully, if we're on the right track here, we're going to clean up a lot of the things that maybe have been neglected or things need to be transformed for us in the future. My point is, why are we doing this a little bit differently than what we would do with the 2020 plan? Because what are we going to do with these folks when these projects are done? They're still going to be on our payroll with benefits and.
Yeah, I understand that, but is that, as we said, this is trying to operate a fairly large operating enterprise fund, and we feel like these people are going to be needed for the long term to be able to manage the department in such a way as, providing you the service that you'd like to see. There's always trade-offs, but in my judgment, basically, is that even as the capital projects go down, we will, release the consultants, but we'll always have a need with the level of work that we're going to be doing. We'll always have a need for this capital project manager, and we have a really large need for the accounting analyst because all of the purchases that we make, we need to be able to follow up that we're doing everything right, and that as we close them out, it's all in accordance with all of the increasing rules and regulations that we face. So we just don't have the staff to follow up with that currently.
If I could follow up on that too, I think the assumption that somehow this is magically going to drop off. I think the size of the system, there's always the repair and maintenance side of things that require, especially in utility work that's a pretty high level. Secondly, in a business model that we're trying to push together, and we're not ready really to have this discussion, but one of the things about bringing Larry on and creating this department was to look regionally about what everybody's doing in this area. We have portions of our service area that aren't being served yet. And we've got to figure out at what point, and if we are going to be adding customer base in those areas. There are surrounding other jurisdictions that may be partners long term. There may be some projects in other jurisdictions that can't be served by them, but would be served by us. All those are going to require granted projects that will be paid for by either those jurisdictions or the customers coming on, but it's going to require a constant looking at reinvesting and building and doing things in the system. So I don't want you to think, you've got like the big rabbit in the python. There is that sense, but there's always going to be projects in a utility of this size, be it R&R or be it new service areas. So I have no qualms about saying there's probably going to be a shortage of staff, but at this point, Larry makes a good point.
Commissioner Zerdy?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple quick things. The other day we had a good meeting there with our consultant CDM, looking at our longer range master planning as it relates to some of these projects here that you're talking about. And I know that we talked about some recharge projects in here, which putting them into place helps resist that movement. So I think that's something I heard that was a very positive action, and I believe listening to you all, you definitely have the sea level rise potential effects in your agenda.